So, I have been going through One Piece. I'm making my way further and further into Marineford, and it has been phenomenal. For context, the last thing I've seen up to this point is Luffy just confronted the admirals. Great scene, great moments. Not the point of the video though, because the point of this video is to talk about the character that has surprised me the most as this arc has gone on. In fact, this is the character I've connected with the most in Marineford, and that character is Whitebeard. Now again, throughout the story, I could have been accused of being a bit of a Whitebeard hater, or if not a hater, I slandered him at points. At least that's what people kept telling me, such as when I'm first introduced to Whitebeard, when Ace meets up with Luffy in Alabasta and he's like, oh, Whitebeard is the greatest pirate ever, I'm gonna make him king of the pirates. And I remember feeling a little guarded, mostly because of how much I love Luffy. I'm a little protective of him. That's like a me problem. I'm just unwell. But I was like, how could you do this, Ace? How could you betray your brother like this? Like, if you don't want to be king, at least help your brother become king. Now, I want to be clear, I don't actually believe Ace betrayed Luffy, but at the time, part of me did feel a little shocked that Luffy's brother would be helping out someone who I viewed as a potential rival, someone who I viewed at the time as maybe the greatest future rival to Luffy, you know, the world's strongest man, this and that. And I guess you could say I was looking for reasons to not like him or to be guarded around him because, again, I saw him as this major adversary Luffy would have to overcome. And then I would hear different things like Buggy say, like, Whitebeard is the world's strongest man. He is easily the person closest to finding the One Piece. And I remember I had a comment where I was basically like, if you haven't found it after 20 years, you're not going to find it. And people were like, what is up with the Whitebeard slander? But I get it though. And people kept telling me Whitebeard doesn't care about the One Piece. And seeing him operate in Marineford, getting to learn more about him, I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand that now. But I would say with everything I saw of Whitebeard, I would say like, okay, he was definitely impressive before this arc began, but I wasn't like, oh, I like Whitebeard. Like when he had his meeting with Shanks, I was like, I don't like the way he's treating my boy Shanks. Like, hey, you're both emperors, you could show him a little bit more respect, but he was like this little squirt and things like that. I get it though, I'm just trying to give my perspective. So anyway, then the Marineford arc begins. And even before Whitebeard arrives, you have this incredible moment. It's a chilling moment where Sengoku is informed like all the ships, I don't know how many there were, like 20 or something like that, keeping watch of Whitebeard, they all sunk. Like just getting word that it's like, oh, okay, this man like immediately took out a bunch of Navy ships, like just like snapping his finger or something like that. And after seeing his power, it makes a lot more sense, but I also want to be perfectly clear. It's not even like Whitebeard's strength, his physical strength that is, that makes me truly like him. That stuff helps because it's cool. Even his design I think is really cool as well, just this mountain of a man. I also really love that coat he has. One of the things I will never drop is Luffy needs to get a nice coat like that. Like even Buggy stole a marine coat and kind of repurposed it by crossing out like the justice and things like that. Luffy, you gotta get a coat, that's all I'm saying, not the point of the video. But anyway, then I see Whitebeard turn up and he just kind of like walks up and it's kind of eerie, but you can also sense like, okay, this is the world's strongest man. Like this is an entrance. Not to mention the way even his ship arrives at Marineford, coming from below the sea. And even to briefly talk about all the symbolism, which I believe there is a lot behind the naming of Whitebeard's ship and even the design. Because again, his ship is named the Moby Dick. It's designed as a white whale. So again, it clearly takes inspiration from the story about Moby Dick. And because it's One Piece and the way I know Oda is, this is not a random detail. This is very purposeful. Because again, even if I look at the story without getting too much into it, Moby Dick in the story represented almost this unstoppable or unconquerable force of the ocean, or represented the struggle against nature itself. Even if you get into this idea of a white whale is something you are desperately seeking after, but you also have little to no chance of actual success. And so when Whitebeard arrives and you see this mountain of a man, this living legend, arrive on his ship, the Moby Dick, there is just so much I can read into it, but the main thing I get out of this is that Whitebeard, much like the whale from the story, is almost like this unconquerable force of nature itself. As I said, he's larger than life. He can never truly be conquered, and something else that maybe I get out of this is that maybe Whitebeard himself found his white whale. He conquered whatever goal he set out to sea for, which, judging from everything I know about One Piece, was his family. He found his family. He achieved what he wanted to with his life. Because again, people will be like, he never found the One Piece, he never did this, he never did that. But again, it's very clear that was never his goal. Just like every person has their own dream tailored to them, every pirate in the story also has what is their white whale, what are they after? Luffy's is the One Piece and to be the freest man on the sea. Whitebeard's was his family. And I'm probably even missing stuff about what his ship represents. But even in the little I take away from that, it seems immensely important and is almost a greater representation of Whitebeard himself. But then this man winds up his power in the way he just like cracks the air, and you're like, what the flip did he do? Well, you know, he basically created a tsunami. And again, Whitebeard's devil fruit is so fascinating to me, it actually made me start rapidly theorizing about especially the end of One Piece. That's how important I believe this devil fruit is. But that's honestly a discussion for another video. But again, I also want to be clear, with as cool as I find Whitebeard's devil fruit, that's not why I like him. That's not what sold me on him as a character. It's moments where you get to see what he values the most, which is his family. Like, this is an ultra powerful person, world's strongest man. But what I easily love the most about him and what connects me the most with him as a person, as a character, is the way he values his family. Like, you could tell that is the most important thing to him. And even getting to see like some of Ace's backstory, where Ace, you know, he's this reckless young pirate. He doesn't really feel like he's welcomed by any part of the world, which makes sense with who his father was. The fact that the Marines wanted him dead before he was even born. And then of course he's dumb enough to challenge Whitebeard. Big mistake, but Whitebeard just turns up, immediately puts him in his place. But again, he doesn't rub it in, he just holds out a helping hand. He's like, hey, like, join my crew, become my son. Which of course Ace is like, screw you. And I love the fact that Whitebeard doesn't give up on Ace. In fact, Ace tries to kill Whitebeard over and over and over again, and Whitebeard could not be bothered in the least. Like, just that one moment where Ace sneaks into Whitebeard's room in the middle of the night while he's sleeping, and he tries to kill this man, and Whitebeard just gets up, beats him, goes back to sleep like not a big deal. I don't know, something about that was kind of funny. And again, Ace just keeps trying to kill Whitebeard over and over and over again. And to be fair, I was even like, is Whitebeard like really just this good of a guy? Or like, I don't know. Like, I was watching it kind of guarded, like, okay, maybe there's like some sort of flaw he has. And again, the more and more I watch this guy, I'm like, I can't even really find reasons to dislike him. He almost doesn't really seem to have any flaws. The one thing I could maybe point to, actually two things I can point to as being a flaw. Number one is that he's called Whitebeard and he doesn't even have a beard, which I know everyone brings up, but it's true, but that's not really a flaw. Number two is that he might be overly trusting of his family in particular, which again is not like even that bad of a thing. The only reason I mention it is because it is something I have seen bite him a couple of times. Like, in many ways, the greatest weakness to the Whitebeard pirates has come from within, from members of the family and the crew betraying Whitebeard, such as when Blackbeard did and he caused this whole mess that they're in right now. And I do sometimes wonder why Whitebeard couldn't see through some of the nefarious intentions of a Blackbeard. Like, I do wonder if Whitebeard saw some of the signs of Blackbeard being a little bit more than meets the eye. The reason I mention it is because when Luffy came across Blackbeard, he immediately saw like there's something to this guy. He immediately was distrusting of Blackbeard, and I wonder if Whitebeard had any inklings like that as well. Now, to be fair, when Luffy came across Blackbeard, Blackbeard had already turned evil, so to speak. But regardless, if I had to find one flaw with Whitebeard, it might be he's overly trusting of his family in particular. And then there's such a great moment between Ace and Whitebeard where Ace is still like, I'm not sure if I will ever be accepted anywhere. And he tells Whitebeard like, I'm Roger's son, like I'm the son of your former rival and things like that. And he's expecting Whitebeard is going to be like, okay, get off my crew or something like that. And Whitebeard could not be bothered in the least because he's like, I don't care where you're from, okay? You are part of my family, and I love that Whitebeard moment. And again, there is a moment I'm going to get to which definitely sold me on Whitebeard. But yes, getting to see how he values his family and things like that, and then even Ace connecting with him more and more so. And even though I connected with Ace through his backstory a little bit more, I found myself far more connected with Whitebeard as his arc has gone on than I ever really felt connected with Ace. Like, you get to see how much Whitebeard values his family and things like that. And then of course there's that moment where Blackbeard, you know, he kills Thatch, he abandons the crew, so in Whitebeard's mind, he's like, I probably lost two sons in the same day. And he tells Ace like, don't go after him. And then obviously like Ace does, it leads to all this and Whitebeard turns up. And then there's that moment where Whitebeard and Ace are talking and Ace is kind of upset, like, why did you guys have to come? Like, you guys told me not to go, I deserve this. And Whitebeard in another great moment is just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I told you to go. And you could tell like he is just taking the responsibility on himself because he's like, I'm the father, I bear the responsibility. And just seeing like, okay, yeah, he truly operates as like the father of all this found family, like all these misfits who didn't really have a place in the world. He's like, yeah, join my crew and become my family. So yes, I was watching him more and more so, and I'm like, okay, I'm really starting to like him. He also had some other really cool moments, like that one moment where that giant attacks him, and not just a giant, a vice admiral giant. And this man is holding a weapon in one hand. He doesn't even really like look at this giant. He just stops the giant's attack with one hand, slams the giant, totally wrecks this giant with his power, and then just tosses the giant with one hand. And it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. But yes, as cool as those moments are, it's the moments where you see how much he values his family that truly make me connect with him as a character. And you get to see as like the battle is going on, as he's watching like the sacrifice that he is bearing, because he understands like, I led my family into this hellhole. I led them into war. You see the weight of every sacrifice on his face. But then of course, even when Luffy finally showed up, and then that brief moment where Whitebeard and Luffy start getting into it, and I was like, okay, am I going to go back to maybe disliking Whitebeard a little bit? Because again, he starts immediately calling Luffy like a squirt. He's like, what could you possibly do and stuff like that. Now I get where he's coming from, because again, Luffy is kind of a little squirt, especially in comparison to Whitebeard and a lot of the ultra powerful people here. And I understand it's kind of his way of protecting Luffy. And then Luffy just like screams at this man, and it made me like Whitebeard even more because of the way he responds. He's like, okay, I kind of like this guy. Because you know, in like the back of Whitebeard's mind, he's probably thinking like, who the flip is this guy talking to? Like, this guy Luffy does know I could kill him immediately, right? But Whitebeard just kind of accepts Luffy yelling at him because he's like, okay, you know, it's not a big deal. And then Whitebeard watching on as Luffy operates, and he's kind of like, okay, I really like this guy. Like, he tells Marco, make sure that kid stays alive. Because again, Whitebeard doesn't really know Luffy, but he's also like, okay, I'll take some responsibility for him. I think part of that is also because he's Ace's brother, so by extension, he's kind of part of the family, but also because he likes Luffy. Also, to be fair, one of the fastest ways you can ingratiate yourself as a character to me is if you have some sort of positive interaction with Luffy in particular. Mostly because of how much I love Luffy as a character. Just so many great Whitebeard moments, but easily the best Whitebeard moment. And arguably like one of the best moments I've seen in all of One Piece is the moment where Whitebeard is betrayed by Squard. One of his sons stabs him in the heart, literally and figuratively. And if that's not bad enough, then he starts accusing Whitebeard of all sorts of horrible stuff. Like he sold out his entire family so that Ace and Whitebeard could get away. They made a deal with the world government. And a lot of the Whitebeard pirates are doubting Whitebeard in that moment. Like, imagine you're Whitebeard. Basically, your entire life has been about your family. And then in that moment, a family member betrays you and then accuses you of betraying your entire family, and all of your family is listening on, and they're like, oh, did he betray us? Like, they're starting to doubt you. But just the way Whitebeard responds is perfect, because the human reaction would be to like get really upset because, you know, someone is saying a bunch of horrible stuff about you, they just stabbed you, and to maybe like kill Squard or something like that. But no, this man just lets Squard share his grievances, and then he hugs his son, and he's just like, I forgive you. And that is just such a great moment. Like, after that moment, I'm like, I can't even find reasons to hate this man. He really is like the model version of what a pirate should be in the show. I mean, he like represents everything I guess a father should be, like strong and loyal, but also forgiving when like his children make a mistake or something like that. Like, I was almost starting to joke like he might even be too perfect. Like, I can't find any faults with this guy. Like, Roger might have been the king of the pirates, but I genuinely walk away from this believing Whitebeard might be the greatest pirate of all time. Like, sure, he'll never be the king of the pirates, but at the same time, the way I currently view him is as a greater pirate than even Roger was, and maybe that's just because of how much I connected with him and how much I like him now. And to be fair, maybe my opinion of Roger will change. It's not like I dislike Roger or anything like that. I simply mean from everything I saw of Whitebeard, how he was like the ultimate pirate. He had all of these things: strength, loyalty, he was loving, he was forgiving, he had all these great traits. I'm like, he might be the greatest pirate of all time. And then the way his allies and his family speak of him, even people like Jinbei, I genuinely walk away from this being like, okay, he might be the greatest pirate of all time. But maybe you disagree, and maybe I'm going a little far with that. But man, I love Whitebeard. But anyway, what do you think about this? And if you want to see more, please like and follow.